known people who sat in it.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, so it's exactly 6 o'clock. Maybe I'll make this a little bit longer so those people can come in. Welcome to the Conesville Historical Society. We have a few other events coming up before I introduce Amber for tonight. Next week, we had pre-sign-ups for a Rail Explorers event in Phoenicia, but at 6 o'clock, we're all meeting at the Phoenicia Railroad Museum, and that's open to anyone that wants to join us. At 6 o'clock p.m., they have a park thing. Okay, I've never heard that before here.
That's his.
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure it wasn't something we needed to address. Thank you. So at 6 o'clock at the Railroad Museum, they're opening it up for us. It's the Empire State Railway Museum. And they've taken the old Phoenicia train station and they've turned it into this museum. And they also have a shed in the rear, well, to the side really, where they have an old steam engine and different train cars that they're working on. It's a really cool place. So if you're interested in joining us, that's at 6 o'clock. In August, we have a few events that are on the bulletin board out at the entryway there. We have Gilboa Historical Society and the Gilboa Museum coming to join us to talk about and show their film that was recently just found. Was it found? Okay. Recreated with the Fox News on the Gilboa Village and the Gilboa Dam. That's August 18th. And then that Friday, we have, through a grant from CREATE, we have the Catskill Mountain String Band. It will be here. Hopefully it'll be outside, but we'll have more fans for that event if it happens to be a very hot day. I apologize for the heat in here today. It's very humid. And then there's other events, upcoming events. If you put your email address in the notebook that's coming around as a sign-in, we can always include you on that email. We are not having any official membership meeting after this. There's really nothing at this point that we need to go over. But we invite you to stay for cookies, or if you get hot and you need a drink during the presentation, come up and help yourself. And I am pleased to welcome Amber Champlin today to our Conesville Historical Society to present on breaking the weed barrier. Amber has a passion for plants, specifically how to use overlooked plants in our gardens that we might otherwise discard. So welcome, Amber.
Hi everyone, I'm Amber Champlin. Many of you know me from the community. I grew up and went to school with Kim actually. This whole project started when I was in Grange. I'm a part of our community Grange in Harpersfield, and they have a lecturers program, and no one wanted to talk about anything, and I enjoy talking, so I got the job. Tonight, like Kim said, tonight we're here to discuss often overlooked plants that are in our gardens. We are here to break the weed barrier, not the physical barrier that you find in your garden, but the mental barrier that keeps us from identifying and utilizing the plants and their constituents. So let's go ahead and break the weed barrier. Okay, so to get started, knowledge is power. A lot of people think that herbalism and plants is a new concept, when in actuality it can be traced back to 60,000 years ago. There's archaeological evidence that suggested that Neanderthals were actually using plant medicine. I have a little timeline here. I know that you guys didn't really come here for a history lesson, but if you'd like to get closer up later on when I'm finished presenting the 15 plants, I went a little overboard with that. I should have cut it down a little. But there is a timeline with some important times relating to herbalism. there's a disclaimer right off the bat. I'm not a doctor, I'm not certified, I'm not registered. I'm just a person who likes to read and try things and learn. So I'm here to share with you what I've learned and the things that I've done that have worked for me, and the ways that I have used. These are all plants that I found in my garden. When we moved to the home that we're living in now, our children are 6th generation on the farm. And one of the first things that I learned about herbal medicine is that if you look around your property, a place that you've spent a lot of time, and you see a lot of herbs or plants that are growing in bulk, like for me, burdock, mullein, all of these are things that I found in my yard. Plants are meant to help you. So all of these plants have similar constituents that do similar things that actually line up with my husband's family health history. So that's very interesting. There's a lot of lung support plants, there's a lot of heart support plants, and also diabetic support plants as well. Sorry, it's so warm in here. Welcome. So I had to cut this program down a little bit. Originally, when I was starting out, I said I wanted to teach everybody everything there is to know, and it turned into a 5-hour presentation, and I said maybe we should cut it back a little bit. So tonight we're going to work on identification, what the plants can be used for, how you can use the plants, and a little less, not so much on like how to make the tinctures and the salves and things like that. So the plan is that once I finish with this presentation, I'll be able to then move on to like a more hands-on presentation of how to do salves and oxymels and oils and tinctures. Who doesn't know what a tincture is? Does anybody know what a tincture is? Yes. Yes. Tell me what it is.
Tincture is using, it's like an oil-based form plant.
So, yes and no. And the reason I'm not trying to like say, no, you're wrong. There's a lot of like misnomers and things. Oh, you can't hear me? Okay. I guess I need the mic. Can you hear me, everybody now?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that. I've never been accused of being quiet before. So, tinctures, first of all, let me back up a little bit. The disclaimer is that if you want to try to use any of these plants and you are on medication, people don't realize that plants very often will react with pharmaceutical medications. The reason being is that pharmaceuticals basically take constituents of plants and break them apart and synthesize them so that they can focus on one of the actions that it does. So for example, mullein is very well known. That's this tall guy here. This is very well known for herbal lung support. It does a lot of different things, but Mucinex would be the pharmaceutical equivalent of the mullein. So for example, if you are on something like an inhaler for asthma, this does a very similar action as that and could actually be counterproductive. That's the disclaimer. Also, it's very important that when you are identifying your herbs and your plants, that you get the right one, because there are so many lookalikes. That's why it's important to use your scientific name or your sciencey name, the Latin name. So on my poster, you can see that I have the common name, but also the Latin name for each. It just helps to make sure you've got the right plant. When you're identifying, it's important that, as I already said, you know what you're looking at, you know what you're working with. I recommend, if you're not familiar with the plant, that you do a 3-point reference. There are apps, there are several books And if you can get it to match based on more than one point, then that gives you a little bit more confidence to make sure that you know what you're working with. The brief history is also in your handout, which Mary, when I'm done with this, you can have this one, okay? So the first thing is to identify your plant, and then you want to harvest it. Sometimes you'll find plants in places you don't want them, and a lot of people's first instinct is to just weed eat it or eradicate it in one way or another. If it's something that is medicinal that you want to use and you don't want it in that place, you can dig it all up by the root. If it's something that you don't mind if it continues growing there and you only need the aerial parts for it, you can cut it and leave the root there to grow back. A lot of plants will, for example, burdock, and anything that's biennial will absolutely grow back. And most of these are called weeds just because they are so prolific here. Let's see. Sorry, I had a lot of ums. It's been a minute since I've done this. I did do this presentation at the Stanford Library as well as for the Grange, and we definitely shortened it up from the 5-hour presentation. So we're going to start with mullein. Mullein is a biennial plant. You can't walk away from this thing. Okay. So mullein is a biennial plant, and here on the poster, it's known as Verbascum thapsus. The parts that are used are leaves and flowers, best harvested in the spring and summer months. The first year, it produces a rosette, which is basically this. Can you guys see this at all? This rosette, it basically has, it does look like a rose, a green rose shape where it grows opposite leaves. And in its second year, it grows a tall stalk. And these are just some we found in my backyard. The little yellow flowers are used in oil, and the leaves you can dry. So once you've properly identified this, we're going to go back to the steps. We're going to... Got it, okay. So if I were to use this plant, if I wanted to harvest it, which I wouldn't have done necessarily because it's still flowering at this point, but again, it was in a place it didn't need to be. So I plucked it out. And all of these little yellow flowers, you can pick them off one by one when they bloom, and they don't bloom all at the same time. So while this is growing, you can pick the flowers. I put them in a low flavor oil. I use extra virgin olive oil, and I use my mullein oil. I let it sit for 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on the temperature, really, and how long it takes me to forget that it exists, because I find them in the back of my cupboard sometimes. But you'll strain the flour out, and then the oil that's left over is really good for earaches. I use it for myself and for my kids. If you have a broken eardrum, you don't want to put any oil in there. I put a Q-tip because I had tubes in my ears, so I had an opening in my eardrum. You don't necessarily want to pour oil in an open eardrum. That should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. I take the oil on a Q-tip and just rub it on my ear canal outside of the eardrum, and it is a pain reliever, and it works almost instantaneously for earaches for me, which is something that I've always struggled with. So if I wanted to dry this, sorry, got a little off topic there, I get excited. I will cut these, just cut the roots off because the roots hold a lot of moisture, but these you would scrub, and you see how they have like the main root, and then it has these little fibrous roots off of them. Those little fibrous roots aren't really much for medicinal purposes, but you could scrub this up and then cut it into 2-inch sections and then let it dry for if you're doing it without any type of if you're just air drying it, it would take about 10 days for those to dry. And then you can either use them whole in a decoction, which is basically a tea, or you can grind them up and use them in a powder and make a tea as you would with coffee and run the water over top of it. The actions of mullein are it's an expectorant, a demulcent, a diuretic, a sedative, a vulnerary, an anticatarrhal, emollient, and pectoral, which these are all scientific-y words, and I do have what their definitions are down at the bottom of this poster as well. This poster was on display at the Stanford Library for a little bit, so it has seen better days, but it still has all the information there. And I brought an example. You can see what it looks like in person, but I put this there because that was a better picture. The flowers on mullein can vary in color. However, they are mostly yellow around here. Like the wild variety I found are mostly yellow. And you do want to, it's best to harvest the second year so you don't kill the plant. It has a stronger constituents in its second year because it has had that time to develop. I have a lot of notes because I have a lot of So edibly, the leaves and the flowers are edible, although it's preferred as a tea because they're furry and who wants to eat furry things? Medicinally, the leaves and flowers are anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, antispasmodic, astringent, and I've already told you all of these words. It reduces the formation of mucus and it stimulates the expulsion of phlegm in an infusion or if you smoke it. I know some of you follow me on Facebook, and I had what I can only describe as the flu at the beginning of in June. And so for an aspiring herbalist, that to me is an opportunity to be my own case study. And so I started out by drinking mullein tea, and when that definitely will bring up the phlegm and the mucus. But when that wasn't working because I was having like shortness of breath and tightness in my chest, I decided that I was going to try and smoke it, as per some of my research that I found in these books. And it had the same effect as an inhaler for an asthmatic. It cleared my lungs out almost immediately. I was like a whole new person within the hour. And then I went to sleep, and the next day I woke up with like similar, smoked a little, coughed that all up, and I was fine by the end of that week. All gone. Yeah.
Do you smoke the leaves of it or the flowers? Which part do you do?
So I dry leaves ahead of time, and I smoke the dried leaves. Are there any other questions on that? No? Okay. Also, the flowers are edible, and they go really good on a salad, if you're not about the medical end of things. I did know on a negative end of things, is that I had so much mucus in my sinuses that it dried it up so fast that I could feel like a crackle in my sinuses where there was still the mucus there, but it didn't like expel it fast enough. It was just kind of like dried out. So that's worth noting as well. And like I said, I'm here to share the things that I've used that have worked for me. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I just, like to share. Next, our next plant is yarrow. Yarrow is such a beautiful plant, and I don't know how anybody considers this thing a weed, because just look at it. It's called Achillea millefolium, and all of the aerial parts are used, and sometimes the roots. It is a diaphoretic, it's hypotensive, astringent, diuretic, antiseptic. It's used to help your body to reduce fevers, to stop bleeding, and to stimulate digestion. Also, I have used it for toothaches. You can just chew on the root. The counter activity to that is if you are on any blood thinners, this actually will help your blood to coagulate. It stops bleeding. So it's more commonly used for like wounds, scratches, things that won't stop bleeding. It used to be used during war times as a field poultice, mixed with plantain, which we'll get to, and wrapped in burdock, because it does stop bleeding very rapidly. And for that reason, before you put that on your wound, you want to make sure you rinse it out, because it will seal any dirt that's in there into your wound. And if your wound is too deep, it can cause, that's okay, it's just a little mugwort. It can cause scarring because it will heal your wound from the outside in rather than the inside out. It also has been used for mastitis, and a poultice can be made for that. And yarrow is used to relieve anxiety and to induce relaxation without sedation, when used as a tea. The disclaimer that comes with this plant is don't use it if you're allergic to it. If you have a known allergy to plants that are in the aster or daisy family, that's a pretty good indicator that you might be allergic to yarrow. It does have like fern-like leaves, and you want to make sure you get the right plant because there is wild hemlock, that looks like this, but it's much taller and has several flower stalks or flower heads off of more than one stalk. This has a single flower per stem. Let's see, chickweed is, where are you? Right here. It's called Stellaria media. It has the leaves, stems, and flowers are all edible, raw or cooked. It's anti-rheumatic, emollient, and has been used externally for cuts and internally for rheumatism. It's a really delicious salad topper. I really enjoy it. I take my kids walking, and my 4-year-old, he will say, my favorite part is foraging for snacks. Which has become a little bit of an issue because he thinks everything's a snack now. It is used internally as a tea or a tincture and externally as a salve, poultice, or you can use it for a tea bath, which, let me see. The tea bath is indicated for arthritis, roseola, and other rashes. You can make a poultice for nerve pain, or you can use it as a tea for constipation and digestive problems. It is used as a detoxification for blood purification and has been used to treat tetanus. Because it does act as a blood purifier. So in the case like that, you would want to use it topically and also internally to treat the problem from the inside out. Moving on. I'm just trying to go through all of the plants, so then I can kind of touch on if you have any questions or specific things. I know every group is a little different, and every group has their own specific interests. Certain people have things that they want to try to treat, or and I brought my books, so I don't know it all, but we can look it up together. Next is Plantago major, which is plantain. I had a plantain, I don't know if it made it. This is burdock. Hold on, I'm going to come around. So plantain is everywhere. Everywhere you look. Anything that has disturbed soil, you can find plantain. The seeds can be used for a flour substitute. And I have such a good plantain, I can't believe it didn't break there. Okay, so this is plantain, and when you're trying to identify it, you look for these rib leaves. They usually start much smaller. I have an experimental garden that I let everything grow in so that when I have this type of a situation, I can give you guys a good example. It's bigger and easier to see. So we look for these leaves. They are low. You can see when you go to pull them apart, they are fibrous. It has little fibers. That's a good way to tell that's what it is. It has these seed bracts that when they are ready, they'll slide right off generally. But this has been plucked out of my garden. But plantain is really good if you have like a topical issue. It's originally, people used it for snake bites, both internally and externally because of its ability to absorb toxins from your blood. The leaves and seeds are edible raw or cooked. When they're this big, they're bitter. So you do want to cook them if you're going to eat them when they're this large. When they're small, you can just pluck them out and eat them raw. Medicinally, they are anti-inflammatory, analgesic, antioxidant, demulcent, diuretic, expectorant. Now, also it's immune modulating and a weak antibiotic. They're used for healing sores, wounds, insect bites, rashes. I already mentioned snake bites. So if you happen to get into like nettles or a bee sting, this is one of the plants that I recommend. And you can just take it and you just rip it up into small pieces and you make it into basically like a mush. And you can add it, I'm not trying to throw it on the floor. You can add a little bit of water as necessary because, like I said, these have been not in the ground for a while. And then you just rub it on whatever wound you have. I got a little bit of parsnip. It's my bane of my existence. But edible. Who knows about wild parsnip? Have you guys seen yellow?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's from what I've learned, it is believed that a lot of the wild parsnip that is in the area. Hi. It is believed that a lot of the wild parsnip that is in the area can be attributed to unkept garden parsnip. And if you, mind you, 7 feet tall is pretty enormous for a plant that could cause you sun blisters. So I don't recommend just leaving it if you can help it. But once you dig the roots out, they are edible just like a regular parsnip would be. And bonus, I didn't know that garden parsnip also makes you photosensitive. The thing that I generally use when I get into parsnip, because I thought that I was invincible and I was just going to weed whack a bunch of it, don't do that, is jewelweed. Jewelweed or touch-me-not. That's this guy. He has these little, there's 2 types of flowers, which are kind of hard to see because he's a little wilted, but they have these bell-type flowers that if you touch them, they'll shoot seeds at you. That's where the no touching comes from. Are you guys familiar with this plant? Okay. So I got a little parsnip on my arm there. I put some of this plantain on it. I actually just discovered this on my way here, so I'm going to give you a great example of how to do it. You want to take your jewelweed, which grows in most of the places where you need it. So if there's a place where there is poison ivy or poison oak or poison sumac or any of those things that have urushiol oil, this has chemical compounds in it that actually absorb that your urushiol oil. So like, I don't know, I'm sure you guys have all had poison ivy or seen somebody with poison ivy, couldn't hold your baby brother because you had poison ivy, because you might give it to him. My mom's in the back aisle row, that's why. So this actually will encapsulate that urushiol oil that causes the rash and makes it so that it cannot spread anymore. Whereas if you get into poison ivy and you just try to wash it off with water, that just spreads it all over and makes it worse. So you can put this directly on there fresh, like I just did. Also, I made a topical, it looks gross, but this is plantain, jewelweed, and witch hazel. And I use this on anything, bug bites, any kind of itchy, irritated skin issue, which when you're a mom of boys, there's lots of those. That brings us to red clover. Red clover is actually purple, and I don't know who named this, but it has these quite obviously purple flowers. It is called Trifolium pratense, and it's easy to identify because it, I don't know about you guys, but as kids we used to pick the little petals off and suck the pollen out because it's a nice, fun, sweet treat. And for that reason, it also makes a really good sweet tea. This is one of the most useful remedies for children. It's been used to treat bronchitis, whooping cough, and eczema. Anytime I'm giving my kids something, generally I make it into a tea and then add a little cocoa powder or honey. My kids are older, do not do that if they're babies, please. Honey's not good for babies. What else? Red clover. On the leaves, it has like a very obvious white V on the leaves, which I never noticed before I started studying this, but that is one of the telltale signs. I didn't pick any of these because they're so small, and also it's wet, so wet. The actions of these, it's alterative, expectorant, antispasmodic, nervine, sedative, and a tonic. And there is some evidence that suggests it's an anti-neoplastic action in animals, which is anti-cancer. Lucy, that's for you.
She's not paying attention.
No, she's sleeping. So edibly, the flowers can be eaten raw or cooked. They make a sweet tea. You can ground the seed pods to be used as a flour replacement. And the taproot is edible when it's cooked. But again, those are very small. That's a lot of work. But you can if you feel froggy. Medicinally, dry herbs can be made into a tincture or tea, and it helps to relieve symptoms of menopause. It is phytoestrogen. Its phytoestrogen content helps for osteoporosis and also hormone replacement. So those PCOS ladies among us, or menopause, perimenopause, premenopause, this helps to supplement that estrogen level. Again, if you're already on medicine for that, talk to your doctor or an herbalist that is registered. There are some doctors in the area that are willing to work with herbalists and willing to learn about herbs. There are some that are not. Good luck. It does have blood thinning properties, and it does help to increase your HDL, which is your good cholesterol. Generally, it is very safe with few side effects, except occasionally gas, and it says not to use them before surgery or childbirth. So if you're getting ready to go and have a baby, maybe don't. That brings us to dandelion. You guys all know what a dandelion is, right? Oh, thank God. I spent a good fraction of my first presentation surprised that nobody knew what a dandelion was. Taraxacum officinale is a dandelion. It's named because its leaves resemble lion teeth.
All parts are used edibly and medicinally. The roots should be harvested in the summer, and the leaves can be harvested in spring or winter. It is a diuretic, a cholagogue, anti-rheumatic, laxative, tonic, antibilious, and hepatic. It's used to treat congestion and inflammation of the liver and gallbladder, as well as muscular rheumatism. And I think, hold on, I was over prepared because I have like their own, this is like my own reference cards, because I always feel like I'm forgetting something. It is a perennial. So the young leaves can be used for salads. The roots can be used as a coffee substitute, or cooked and eaten, and they taste similar to a turnip. Flowers can be used in salads, buttered and fried, made into a jelly, tea, or wine. I make dandelion sweetener. It was supposed to be jelly, but it didn't set. Pectin is not my friend. And you can also make dandelion wine. So it's very edible. Medicinally, it is like a general tonic for the entire body. It's high in vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. It helps with digestive problems, liver and gallbladder function, and it helps protect your liver. It is a diuretic. It can be used for skin wounds, corns, and warts. The fresh juice, also sometimes referred to as milk, is useful in treating itches, ringworm, eczema, warts, and corns, because it is antifungal. The tea can be used in those instances as a wash, so you can make your tea, your infusion, and then put that, either use it as a bath or just wash the area. It helps to stabilize bone density. It helps to control blood sugar. It's used in urinary tract disorders, iron deficiency, and anemia. It prevents and helps to treat cancer when used with burdock. It also helps with mastitis and lactation and fights inflammation and arthritis. So it is like a miracle plant that people are just mowing over, calling a weed. And my son says, dandelions are for eating and making wishes, Mama. So that's dandelion. Next is motherwort. And I read that this can get to be 6.5 feet tall and 3 feet wide. And I was like, I've never seen it that big. Bet. And then I let it grow. And this was the smaller of the stems that came. You can tell that this is motherwort because of the purple spiky flowers. A lot of people confuse this with purple nettles. It's not nettles. It does bite you if you touch those spikes, but it's not like a stinging. The lower leaves sort of resemble maple leaves, and then the upper leaves are completely different and just a tiny bit smaller. The scientific name for motherwort is Leonoris cardiaca. The flowers are edible as well as the leaves. Generally, it's used medicinally because it is very bitter, especially this big. If I wanted to use these leaves, I would remove them from the stem. The stem is very woody, and it's going to hold a lot of moisture for no reason. That is a sedative, a hepatic, a menagogue, antispasmodic, and a cardiac tonic. It's also very commonly used for women's issues, from menstrual and menopause symptoms, and it's also, so the motherwort name comes from its mother uses, and its cardiaca name comes from its heart uses. What do I have? Like I said, it is safe to be eaten, but it's very bitter. The flowers and leaves can be made into a tea, to help prevent calcification of arteries and help to treat high cholesterol, hypertension, and to help regulate heart rate. Rapid heartbeats and improves blood circulation. It reduces the risk of blood clots from forming in the body, which is the opposite of yarrow, just in case you need to know that. It strengthens uterine contractions, so not to be used while you're pregnant, unless your doctor says it's time to get that baby out, and then by all means. It helps to reduce blood clots from forming in the body and reduces the risk of a stroke. It's used to relieve cramps, helps with ADHD, depression, anxiety, hypothyroidism, and insomnia. That's all this plant. Okay. Purslane is a succulent that I thought somebody was pranking me with because it is very pretty, and most people don't just find wild succulents growing. Usually that costs a lot of money to plant in your garden. But this is not it. Where is the purslane? Purslane is down in the corner. Portulaca oleracea. The leaves and stems and flowers are edible, and the seeds can be ground down to be used as flour. They have small yellow flowers on them that grow in clusters of 2 or 3, but if you see them, you're lucky to see them because they only open late in the summer, and they only open for a few hours on sunny mornings. So that's something to be on the lookout for. They have a sour, salty flavor and can become bitter when the leaves are mature. The stems and flowers are edible, raw, cooked, or pickled. But when you cook them, they're a little bit slimy. Might be better to just eat them raw. But when you do cook them, they don't like shrink as spinach would. Medicinally, purslane seeds decrease the volume and duration of abnormal uterine bleeding. It helps with shortness of breath, helps to open bronchial tubes to increase oxygen reaching the blood, which is good for asthma attacks. It helps reduce triglycerides in long-term daily use. People have reported lower glucose levels and better diabetes management. Purslane has antifungal properties against jock itch and athlete's foot and ringworm when applied topically. It helps to lower cholesterol due to its high pectin content, which I could have used for my dandelion concoction. Didn't. It also is high in omega-3s and gamma-linoleic acid, which makes it an excellent antioxidant and is considered safe to eat in any amount. Like, you can't overdo it with this one. And like I said, it's quite pretty, and it will choke out your stuff, but it's very ground hugging. It sticks to the ground. It has one taproot, and then it has miniature little fibrous roots to kind of keep it going when it gets a little further away from the main root. Evening primrose, I was a little skeptical to keep this one in the presentation because it is a lookalike to mullein. It is also a biennial, and it also grows as a rosette in its first year and as a tall stalk, just like the mullein, in its second year. It is completely edible, but it is leathery and has like a really rough texture to get by. Primarily, its roots are boiled and eaten, and its seeds are made into evening primrose oil, which is doable at home, but it's quite the doings because you have to squeeze all of the little seeds. So it says that you can use the seed pods, you can eat them, cooked or steamed, but I have not personally done that, so I'm not going to recommend that, but you can, I guess. Medicinally, the seeds contain oil, which also contain gamma-linoleic acid, omega, and fatty acid. It's used for balancing women's hormones, such for PMS, PCOS, menopause, hair loss, skin disease, eczema, psoriasis. So if that's a thing that you're interested in, I think the best route to go would be to find the oil that's already made rather than try to make your own. I've looked into it. It is a lot. It is a lot to try to get the oil out. And then you have to kind of guess how much you're actually getting, what is the, how strong it is. So, I mean, it is edible. It is very helpful in a lot of things. And for whooping cough, you can boil the flowers in a small amount of water and then sweeten them with honey because they are very bitter. Moving on to nettle. Everybody knows what nettles are, right? How many of us found out the hard way? Okay. It is a perennial. They can get 3 to 8 feet tall. When I read that, that is terrifying. That is like a jungle of stinging nettles. No, thank you. They have mostly oval leaves. There are other lookalikes. Basically, Lyrica dioica is the one that stings you. That's the medicinal one. So they are edible. Generally, you want to blanch them. I have fed these to my children. It did pass the kid test. They loved it. I made turkey and nettle burgers, and they devoured them. You do want to blanch them, and you want to get them before they flower because the itchiness, the nettle, the hairs get a little bit more violent after they flower, I guess, for lack of a better term. Medicinally, you can use them for a tear tincture. They are used for relieving allergies. They're anti-inflammatory, and they're used for arthritis, gout, and other inflammatory conditions. One thing about stinging nettle that I thought was really incredible is that it's been used topically to repair joint injuries and nerve connections. So if you have like nerve damage from something, an injury, and you sting the area, it can help to reconnect those nerve connections that have been depleted. It also helps to flush out toxins and helps to reduce pain associated with inflammatory conditions and gout. It can be used topically for burns, insect bites, and wounds. That's the juice on the inside. So you get stung on the outside with the hairs on the outside, you can actually break it in half if you're brave enough, if you're not just going to, pull away. You can use the juice on the inside of the nettle to treat its own issues. It's also used for menstrual problems, sprains, cramps, tendinitis, and sciatica because it helps to stimulate blood flow. Mallow is our next plant. Malva sylvestris, and there are several lookalikes to this. There is musk mallow, there is marshmallow, they're all mucilaginous. And I don't want to say that they're interchangeable, but all except one is edible. You want to look for these, they're almost like a clover, deeply lobed leaves. And let me see if I have a better. They are covered in soft white hairs and palmately lobed, dark in color with long petioles. They have little, what I call cheese wheels as their seed pods, and they actually contain protein. All parts are edible, raw or cooked, and are mucilaginous. Leaves cook up like okra. Cooked roots can be eaten and used like egg whites in a meringue. Medicinally, all parts are used. The mucilage is soothing and anti-inflammatory. It helps to soothe irritated mucous membranes and relief colds and coughs, bronchitis, emphysema, asthma, anything that is inflamed tissue, so it works for burns, dermatitis, swelling. Do you see? A lot of these plants that I found all have the similar medicinal uses. And when I was speaking to my husband's grandmother, she said that actually lines up with their health history. So that's just unbelievable to me that all of these are so similar in that way. If you make a tincture out of the mallow, it is antibacterial against staphylococcus and streptococcus and enterococcus, and it is used for UTIs and other infections. It is considered safe to use for children, and you can make, the tea can be rubbed on gums for teething. It also helps to relieve nausea, stomach, and digestive upset. Burdock, we all know what burdock is, but just in case I brought one. Burdock is this fun thing that makes those, I don't want to take it out of the bag because it's got a big old root on it, but this is the burdock. It has these large leaves that are resembling of rhubarb. It's not rhubarb, don't eat it like that. But it does resemble rhubarb. And the part that is, I just knocked that cross down, Tim, I'm sorry. The part that is primarily used of this is actually the root. I use the root for tea. I clean the root off, the same deal, cut it into 2-inch pieces. It doesn't have to be exactly 2-inch pieces, but you want to make sure it's all the way dry because you don't want to create mold. And then I grind it and I use it like a tea, or I put it in soups. Some people apparently eat the stems, and you can eat them when they're young in salads, but they become fibrous as they mature, and the stem you can actually peel and eat the core of. I don't do that, but you can. They are antifungal and antibacterial. They help with digestion and gas as a diuretic and regulates blood sugar. It is a powerful detoxifier which helps to eliminate heavy metals and other toxins from the body. It's used to treat breast cancers, pancreatic cancers, and contains high concentration of bioavailable iron, which helps with anemia. Another thing that's really incredible about this plant is it helps to fight against herpes, both types. Let me see if I can find burdock. Sorry guys. It helps against herpes, eczema, psoriasis, acne, impetigo, boils, insect bites, and burns. Again, use the tea for all those things. It strengthens the immune and lymphatic systems, helps with osteoarthritis and degenerative joint disease, and it's also used for sore throat and tonsillitis. All tea from the roots. Which brings us to milk thistle. I'm kind of trying to get through all of these plants, and I think we're making pretty good time. Milk thistle, there are so many thistles, but milk thistle is, the parts that are used are the seeds. When you harvest that, you would cut the head off and hang it upside down in a paper bag. As it dries, the seeds will be collected in the bag. Don't forget the bag, otherwise you'll have seeds everywhere and also milk thistle everywhere. You can identify this one because it has the white veins in its leaves. Every thistle is spiky, but this one specifically has the deep white marbling in its veins. Roots can be eaten raw, boiled, parboiled, or roasted. Young shoots are harvested in the spring. It's boiled like spinach. You can eat the spiny bracts of the flower head like an artichoke. You only have to just steam them until they're tender, similar to an artichoke. They're high in potassium nitrate, which is not suitable for cattle or sheep. So if you have that kind of animals, you want to actually make sure that you don't have any of that in your pasture. Medicinally, both the leaves and seeds can be used. They can be eaten raw or made into tincture. The milk thistle supports and detoxifies the liver. A lot of times, doctors will prescribe like a milk thistle tea in order to cleanse your liver and detoxify your liver. Also, it helps to prevent gallstones and kidney stones, helps to lower high cholesterol and blood sugar, and is an antidote for the ingestion of poisonous mushrooms. If you have your wits about you enough to look for a thistle after you eat a poisonous mushroom, you're all set. We already kind of covered jewelweed. Edibly, jewelweed is edible, but it does contain a lot of oxalates, which will give you kidney stones. So if you plan on eating the stem of the jewelweed, which if you look at this and think this looks like something you want to eat, then go for it. But you want to boil it twice, 10 minutes each, and dump the water out, because that will get rid of the oxalates from this. You can eat the flowers on a salad. They're actually quite delicious. And if you eat too much, it does have a laxative effect. Let's see, you can toast the seeds if you can get them without them popping at you. Don't know how to do that yet. I will get back to you when I figure it out. But they supposedly taste like toasted walnuts. Medicinally, the liquid inside of the jewelweed contains a chemical that neutralizes urushiol oil, which we've already discussed. It can be used for eczema, heat rash, ringworm, warts, sores, and other conditions, and does have antifungal properties. I think that's all of the plants I brought to discuss. Oh wait, self-heal. How did I forget self-heal? Self-heal is a small, it's over here, Prunella vulgaris. The aerial parts are used. It's an astringent, vulnerary, and a tonic. They can get 4 to 20 inches tall, and they actually get small fruits on them if you get to them before the birds. They are edible. The young leaves and stems are edible and make a good addition to salads. Medicinally, they contain a number of vitamins, minerals, anti-inflammatories, and antioxidants, and they're most famous for treating cold sores and genital herpes. It reduces insulin sensitivity and induces cell death in cancer cells. It helps to stimulate the immune system, heals wounds and skin infections, insect bites, stings, rashes, and poison ivy. It's very helpful to use in viral infections and respiratory infections, for allergies and chronic inflammation, kidney problems, hypertension, heart, liver, digestive, and hemorrhaging. And that's why I commonly call it heal all. And that became a problem for me because that's not in any of the books. It's called self-heal, not heal all. It generally grows, I've found it growing in wooded areas along like the edges of forests or underneath bushes. That's this guy over here. Again, once I finish all this, you guys are free to come up here and look. So now that we've identified all these plants and all the things of what they can do and what you might be able to use them for, I'd like to discuss harvesting and drying them. So like I said, if it's a plant that is in a place you don't want it, you want to take it out by the roots. If it's a place that you'd like for it to grow back, you can just cut it with a sharp tool, scissors, that's what I use. So For mullein, I could very well just cut the roots off and dry it like this. But that would take longer than if I were to just pull the leaves off and dry them like this. Every plant is a little bit different, and it depends on what part you're trying to use. Another thing that I recently learned about mullein is that these were used as insoles because they create circulation. So they used to be put in moccasins to keep their feet warm and to keep them dry, and they're soft. Also, you can, what? Yes, it is cowboy toilet paper as well. But again, it does cause circulation to the area that you touched on, so be wary. I don't know how much circulation you want in your toilet paper areas, but keep that in mind. Also, you can take the leaves off of this, and the stalk can be used as a dowel for starting fires. And the top of this, when dunked in, they said raccoon fat, but any kind of oil or fat, you could use this as a torch and it'll burn for 30 minutes. And also you can sword fight with them. I have to add that in because my son would be very disappointed if I didn't. So when you are drying a plant, you have to keep in mind, I do have a card for this because I want to get the temperatures right. You have to keep in mind how much heat you're using because you can lose some of the constituents that you are looking for. So if you're making an infusion, you want to boil the water and then pour it over your leaves so that you aren't heating up the leaves itself, and all of that will go into your water. When you're making a tea, it's important for you to make sure that you're letting it steep for 10 to 20 minutes. Otherwise, again, you're not really giving it the time to get all of its constituents. There is a card up here. Oh, right here. Found it. Okay, so the ideal temperature for drying herbs is between 65 degrees and 115 degrees because vitamins like vitamin C are heat sensitive and start to degrade at 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Excuse me. Enzymes become denatured and deactivated starting at 120 degrees, and flavonoids and antioxidants can be affected by high heat, but there's not really any number that is associated with that. Minerals are less sensitive to heat but can be lost if you boil your water and then dump it because it does get absorbed in the water. So basically any heat above 104 degrees is going to start taking away all of the good properties from your plant. I recommend hanging them. If you're planning on using the whole plant, I would take the roots off, dry those separately, but hang the entire plant. I have a clothesline in my house that I just hang plants on. My kids accept it. You can do, if you plan on using the leaves, so basically you have to consider what you're trying to make, what you're trying to use the plant for. If you're not going to use the root, then you don't need to bother yourself with trying to dry the root. The smaller of a part it is when you are drying it, the quicker it will dry. It's kind of like, as you would suspect. So once you have your herbs dried, you need to store them away from the light in a glass container, because if you put it in a bag or a sack, some of the volatile oils will just be lost in storage. I store all my stuff in mason jars. Excuse me. All my tinctures are in brown bottles, but these are in a cupboard, so they're away from light. You can tell if your herbs and plants have been dried properly because they will retain their color and you will still have the scent from them. And So the first step is to dry them. You can use your dried herbs in a tea. The difference, there are two different types of things that you can make: an infusion or a decoction. An infusion is for sensitive plant parts like leaves and flowers, and a decoction is when you actually boil. So like the roots, you want to be able to, they take a little bit longer to pull the constituents out. Let's see what else. So basically, both of those things are teas. When you're making a decoction, you don't want to use aluminum because that will interact with the constituents from your plants. Tinctures are essentially, there are 3 different carriers that you can use. You can use alcohol that is 60 proof or higher, vinegars, which you can use to cook with them. Obviously, you don't want to use the alcohol to cook with. That's more of like a cough syrup type of a situation. You can use a vinegar base, which doesn't last quite as long as the alcohol does, but you can use it to cook with. I have a honey fermented garlic apple cider vinegar stuff that I make, so I'll ferment my garlic in the honey, and then I add the apple cider vinegar and blend it all up really good. And if anybody gets sick, they get a little bit of that, and that cures what ails them real quick. And they don't ever tell me they're sick anymore. This is my mullein oil. And this is my first sample of roots, mallow root. This is also really good for, you can put this in like a shampoo. It helps with hair growth. And this is my powdered burdock root, because again, when you're working with a root, the smaller of a piece you have, the more bioavailable it is to the water. The more of those constituents you'll get pulled into whatever you're making. And I think that's it. Are there any questions? Yes?
When you're drying the leaves, I have a dehydrator.
Okay.
I can
Yes,
put
you
them in
can.
that.
So most dehydrators don't add any heat, and if they do, it's a very low heat,
Right.
because they are designed to dehydrate
Right.
plants. So you could absolutely, I use a dehydrator for roots specifically. It makes it go a little bit quicker. It won't
Right.
take the full 10 days because it does have that airflow.
Yeah.
A lot of them do have that fan in there. Yeah.
So for us, our air fryer it has a dehumidifier mode. Would that work, or would we have to specifically get a dehumidifier?
So you can use even your oven, but because a lot of the new ovens don't have a setting that's that low, you really don't want it to be above 180 if you're using your oven. And if you do have to use your oven because you just have no other options and you're just impatient, cannot wait, I would recommend putting it on its lowest setting and leaving it opened. Not all the way, but just cracked so that it can release that moisture. There isn't really anything you can't use, except please don't use the microwave, because it just doesn't dry anything. But yes, you could, if it has a dehydrator setting on there, I imagine that it's probably, does it come with a manual? That will probably tell you how to properly do that. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
You were talking about having your plants drying in your house. How safe is it for them to be drying and having pets and kids in and out?
So I mean, all of these are kid and pet safe. My pets don't bother with them. My kids don't even notice them. I just kind of like find a corner that's out of the way and have a clothesline hung up high enough. If your child has allergies to stuff, that might be a little bit questionable, but I don't think that I have not personally had any issues with my pets or my kids. More or less, the kids might knock into them and knock them over, and then you just have to hang them back up. But especially if you're trying to harvest seeds, make sure you've got that paper bag. Make sure. Anybody else? Okay, so if you guys want to come up here, oh, sorry, okay.
You didn't have, but I was given Comfrey.
Comfrey?
Yeah.
Okay,
Could you help me out with that?
okay, so.
It's there, it grows, and I don't know what to do with it.
So comfrey, I grow comfrey as well, and it's really good for use in salves. It's a little bit, it's one of those plants that is on the edge of, is this safe or is this not safe? Because from what I've read, they did do a study where they gave like a whole bunch of it to a mouse, and it caused that mouse to have cancer when taken internally. But if you make a salve out of it, it is supposedly like a miracle topical thing. You can make salves or put it with a heat pad.
Flowers or leaves?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Dry it first?
Yes.
Okay.
If you want to do it as a poultice, which is essentially like you just break it up, put it in with a little water, crinkle it up, and then put it on. So like a field poultice, they use plantain and yarrow, and then the comfrey does the same thing. And there definitely is comfrey in one of these books if you're interested in looking it up. Like I said, once you come up, when we're done here, you guys are free to come and look through all my materials, look up whatever you're interested in, because I just like to share the knowledge. And I think it's important.
So the comfrey would not be taken internally?
Some people do. I don't. I can't stand here in good confidence and tell you to take it internally because I wouldn't. I would use it topically for a salve, which a salve is basically a oil, some beeswax, and the tea of whatever you're using. Or you can make it into an oil. So if you were to take the comfrey leaves and put it into an olive oil and let that set for 4 to 6 weeks and then strain that out, you could use that oil in yourself.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? All right, guys. Thanks for coming out tonight.